The problem of kids and cars and illegal game playing is a universal one in the Western world and no less in Australia. An organisation has been set up to try to cope with this problem, firstly in Victoria, but with the hope of going national, and it's called, appropriately enough, Handbrake Turn. The project is under the control of Keith Waters of Care and Communication Concern.
We've been involved in working with young offenders for a long time in our organisation, and through that work, particularly with kids who are incarcerated, we found that there was a lot of young people that were being incarcerated for motor vehicle theft. So we explored the issue a bit further, and what we found was that in Victoria alone there's 30,000 cars stolen each year, and that cost the Victorian community about $116 million a year. Now there is, most of those crimes are committed by young people under the age of 24, mostly young people between 15 and 20. Well, we run two different programs, as you know, one in South Melbourne, one here in Dandenong. In the South Melbourne project, that works with young people who are serious recidivist offenders, so they mainly come out of institutions. Here in Dandenong, they come from all over the place. They're young people that have tampered with cars, some that haven't been involved in any sort of crime at all, but are at risk. They're unemployed, dropped out of school early. So they come from a variety of sources: police, courts, other social work services, schools.
Are they recommended to you?
They're recommended to us.
Right,
right.
okay. And how many courses do you run?
Well, in South Melbourne we run 4 courses a year, and here in Dandenong we run 4 courses a year. Combined we put about 120 young people through a year.
What's the period of time of the course, Keith?
In Dandenong here it's a 10-week course, and in South Melbourne it's either an 8 or a 13-week course, depending on your age.
At this point, the project is exclusively Melbourne-based, at Dandenong and South Melbourne. But it has been remarkably successful, as we shall see, and it has the support of the Victorian Police. Here's Chief Commissioner Neil Comrie. Commissioner, what would prompt the Victorian Police interest in the Handbrake Turn project?
Well, Peter, we're always looking for initiatives which can have an effect on our crime. Motor vehicle theft in particular is a great problem for us. It's escalating throughout Australasia, and I think this initiative is a great way to actually tackle that problem head on.
Is it working?
Absolutely. In fact, the early evidence coming out of the 3 programs run to date have been quite outstanding. Most of the young people who have a fairly checkered history in many ways, many of them coming from deprived situations, have been given, I think, some real direction in life, some work skills and their own ability to communicate and see perhaps some other things than they've experienced previously has been developed, point where they're not breaking the law anymore.
The results at South Melbourne, we're talking to kids about serious offenders. Our results there in terms of placing kids in jobs and also keeping them offence-free, that is not committing any other crimes, is about 45%. The project we run here in Dandenong, we place 85% of our young people into real jobs, and on top of that we have managed to keep 95% offence-free. That is, they haven't committed any other crimes when they've left us. In fact, since the project here in Dandenong started 9 months ago, motor vehicle theft in the city of Greater Dandenong has dropped by 25%.
None of these young people will come out of these courses with a certificate of any kind, but they do learn basic essential skills which will open the doors to other opportunities. The responsibilities that go with a driving licence, basic mechanical skills, and an introduction to panel beating and spray painting. And they spend some fun time learning car control skills in carts. What do they get out of it?
First, getting skills so I can get a job, and I like doing mechanics, and it's a pretty good career for young people to get into for courses.
Well, I've been unemployed for a while, so hopefully this will train me to get a job I want to do.
What sort of job do you want to do?
Hopefully panel beating and spray painting.
This project is funded by a mix of government and private enterprise capital and looks as if it could go nationwide.
There's a lot of good things which have small beginnings which eventually develop, and I perhaps use the Neighbourhood Watch example. Tried in one state, now national. A really great initiative, and I think Handbrake Turn's really got the potential to do the same thing.
Recipes these days are always talking about finely diced onion. How do you finely dice an onion? It's quite simple, actually. You just peel an onion, cut it in half, put it flat on the bench, and then you cut, with a nice sharp thin knife, slices through like that, and then acrossways, keeping it together, about 4 for an onion this size, and then all you need do is slice it through there. There we have the perfect dice.
Believing in fairies is part of the wonder of childhood, but as adults we leave all that magic behind. Or do we? Tonight I'd like you to meet Anne Atkins, who actually lives in the closest thing I've ever seen to a magic castle. When she was a child, Anne had daydreams about fairies. As an adult, she dreamt of living in a church. Today, her home environment reflects her fantasy world. Anne, tell me, when did you first discover that you could see fairies?
At about the age of 3, Felicity. I was living in the bush with my parents and sister in Western Australia, and was always playing in the sand, in the bush, with the nature spirits, which of course are the fairies.
And now you live in a beautiful fairy castle. Tell me, how did you find this?
I announced to a friend in the morning, 3 years ago, that I wanted to buy a church in Richmond. That afternoon she rang me and told me about this. That evening I met the agent and bought it.
So the good fairy spirits were looking after you then?
Absolutely. From the moment I walked through the door here, I knew that this was the place for me. There was no doubt about it.
And tell me where you found this beautiful backdrop.
I found it here, rolled up in a corner. Apparently it was used in this church hall in a production in 1929 of Fairies at the Bottom of My Garden. And this wand was on top of it, and apparently was also used in the same production. So wasn't that destiny? The hall was waiting here for me.
But transforming the church hall into a home wasn't just a simple matter of waving a wand. And what state was the church in when you first bought it?
Well, when I moved in, actually, I moved into one area surrounded by junk and rubble with a portaloo. So it took a lot of tolerance, but it was worth it.
3 years on, there are mezzanine floors at either end of the hall, accommodating bedrooms and a bathroom. Beneath Anne's bedroom is a spacious kitchen, adjacent to a laundry and a guest bathroom. The open-plan living area is enormous, big enough, in fact, for Anne to hold medieval-style banquets. Only the bathrooms are fully enclosed by floor-to-ceiling walls. But despite the vast open spaces in her home, Anne has created a comfortable and cosy atmosphere.
Basically, I've created little areas, vignettes all around that are cosy, they're very intimate. The living room, for instance, it's encased by the lounge chairs, and there's a television set, coffee table, lovely artifacts, lots of soft drapery. And one does feel very cozy in that particular area. And the kitchen, it's really designated by the use of pillars and a lowered ceiling. And so that's cozy too.
Wishes. Lots of wishes. Wonderful. Here we have wish. Woo! Woo! Magic wishes.
Tucked away at the opposite end of the building is Anne's studio, where she makes sparkling treasures for her Wonder Wings fairy shops. There's one in Richmond, the first of its kind in Australia, and one at Chadstone. Little girls in frothy net tutus with sparkling wings sprouting from their backs gather here to celebrate birthdays or to hear enchanting fairy stories. They sit on toadstools in the fairy garden, sip lemonade and nibble fairy cakes.
Here is where the magic becomes very strange.
This is the Wand Workshop, Felicity, and I absolutely love it. This is my paradise with all the glitter and the colour, the sparkles. I come here to play. It's beautiful. I make all the wands and the decorated books. Everything that glitters is made on this